The Witcher Saga. Witcher Saga lore to soothe nightly rest. Intro. Hello and welcome. Tonight, we're going to journey together through the dark and wondrous world of the Witcher Saga. So find a comfortable spot, lie back, and allow your body to grow heavy. Close your eyes and just let go of the day. All the tensions in your shoulders, in your neck, the thoughts that circle endlessly in your mind. Let them all begin to soften and drift away. For the next 2 hours, we'll follow the path of Geralt of Rivia, from his early trials and transformations to his fated bond with Ciri, the child of destiny. There is nothing else you need to do, no effort required. Just listen to the sound of my voice, relax, and let this story guide you into a deep and restful sleep. Before our tale begins, if you find a bit of peace in these stories from other worlds, think about subscribing to our channel. It is a simple, quiet way to make sure you don't miss any of our future journeys. There will be no jarring notifications, only a gentle promise of more tales to come. Now let the world outside just fade away. Let the sounds of your home become distant and unimportant. It's time for the story to begin. Section 1. Chapter 1. The Path of a Witcher. Our story starts on the continent, a land of ancient, whispering forests, sprawling kingdoms built on conquest, and cities that buzz with life and secrets. It is a world that has known peace only in fleeting moments. A world scarred by the near-constant threat of war. A world where magic is a volatile and powerful force, a source both of creation and of utter destruction. And it's a world where monsters, creatures not born of this dimension, still lurk in the dark and forgotten corners of the earth. These are not ordinary beasts. Many are leftovers from a long-gone era, a cataclysmic event known as the conjunction of the spheres, in which the worlds overlapped and the walls between realities collapsed. Because of it, the continent was changed forever. Beings from other planes of existence arrived, and raw magical energy suffused the land. In that upheaval, humans came to dominate the world. The ancient races, elves, dwarves, gnomes, found themselves challenged and displaced, and monsters became part of the landscape. And where there is magic, and where there are monsters, there are witchers. Geralt of Rivia is one of them. A witcher isn't born, he is made, forged through an agonizing and often fatal process of mutation and training. The Order of Witchers emerged to protect the common folk from the monsters left behind after the conjunction. Young boys, often orphans, or those offered via the ancient law of surprise, were brought to strongholds like Kaer Morhen. There they trained in swordsmanship, alchemy, monster lore. But the hardest part came later, the trial of the grasses, a brutal process of mutagens, alchemical compounds, and transformation. Those who survived emerged faster, tougher, with sharpened senses, and the ability to see in the darkness. Geralt endured these trials and more. His tolerance for mutagens was exceptional. He also underwent further mutations, leaving his hair white, a distinctive mark of the so-called White Wolf. While the exact nature of these extra mutations is not fully expounded in canon, based on what we know, it seems he was subjected to additional experiments beyond the standard Witcher fare. He is a master swordsman, a student of alchemy, and a wielder of Witcher signs. These signs are not the complex arcane spells of a sorcerer, rather they are tactical cantrips a Witcher can cast. Ard, a telekinetic blast. Igni, bursts of flame. Quen, a protective shield. Axi, a subtle charm. Yrden, a magical trap that can immobilize or expose incorporeal creatures. These align with the game's mechanics. At his core, Geralt is a hunter, a professional killer of beasts that prey on people. But this life has its price. The very mutations that give him his power also mark him as an outsider. To most people, he's a freak, a sterile mutant to be feared just as much as the monsters he's paid to kill. His life is a lonely one, spent on the road, the path, as witches themselves sometimes call it, drifting from one town to the next, his wolf head medallion vibrating to warn him of nearby magic or monsters, following rumors of a basilisk in a cellar or a griffin terrorizing a mountain pass. It is a lonely existence, staccato moments of contract work punctuating long stretches of travel. One of these contracts takes him to the ruins of an old palace near the city of Vizima, capital of Temeria, where the daughter of King Foltest has been afflicted by a desperate curse, turned into a striga. The monster was born of an incestuous union between the king and his sister Ada. Her Highness the striga then stalks by night. The king offers a reward to anyone who can lift the curse, not just kill the creature. This is the kind of challenge that gets to the heart of a witch's code. It isn't about mindless slaughter. It is about understanding the nature of the curse, about seeing the monster and recognizing the sliver of humanity still buried within. Geralt takes the job. He investigates, prepares, and when the night comes, he enters the crypt beneath the palace, braced for the long vigil. He uses Ard to stagger the striga, Yrden to trap her movements, and his silver sword to wound and hold her at bay. As the first streaks of dawn hint through the chamber, he locks her sarcophagus, waits for the third crow of the rooster, and the curse is broken. When it ends, he emerges to find not a monster, but a young woman, the princess restored to human form. Adventures such as these build Geralt's reputation. He is a man with a quiet, often grim sense of morality in a world that rarely thinks in black and white. Through his travels, he learns again and again. The real monsters aren't always those with claws and fangs. Sometimes they wear crowns, command armies, or carry the banners of so-called righteous gods. This hard-won wisdom guides him down a path through a world that is both beautiful and brutal, a world teetering on the edge of profound change. Section 2, Chapter 2, The Last Wish. Tonight, as you sink deeper into stillness, imagine the quiet riverbank where our tale continues, where laughter should have echoed, but instead the world shifted in a single breath of magic. Geralt of Rivia travels with his friend and companion Dandelion, a bard whose songs often exaggerate wild adventures into heroic legends. In their search for a quiet meal by the river, Dandelion pulls out something unexpected from the water, an ancient sealed amphora, carved and weather-worn. Despite Geralt's cautious warnings, curiosity gets the better of them. As Dandelion breaks the seal, a furious air elemental is unleashed, a djinn, a being of raw magic and terrible power. Instantly, chaos follows. The djinn attacks. Dandelion is struck near silenced by its force. Geralt realizes the situation is far more dangerous than a wish-granting servant. He performs an exorcism he once heard, freeing the djinn for the moment, But the damage is done. Dandelion lies critically injured. Geralt carries his friend to the nearby city of Rinda. The spelling differs slightly in some translations, seeking aid. There is only one mage, powerful enough to help. Yennefer of Vengerberg, the sorceress whose beauty and ambition are matched only by her reputation for cunning. Her past is difficult. She left a painful childhood, transformed herself in the magical academy, and paid a heavy price to achieve power. Yennefer agrees to heal Dandelion, but she has her own designs. She knows the djinn remains bound to the urn's seal, and to the one who last held it, which turns out to be Geralt. She realizes the djinn's power could help her reclaim something she lost: fertility. As the story progresses, Yennefer lures the djinn back to Rinda. She uses Dandelion as bait, and Geralt finds himself imprisoned after Yennefer uses magic in the town to provoke violence against those who offended her. As chaos engulfs the inn and the town, Geralt realizes that the djinn is bound to him, the one who last held the seal. The creature obeys his earlier commands, his first wish, his second, and now waits for the third. In that moment of extreme danger, as Yennefer and the djinn fight, the town collapsing around them, Geralt makes his third and final wish. The exact words are not revealed in the canonical text. What we do know is that the wish binds his fate to Yennefer's in some fundamental way. It ensures the djinn cannot kill her without conflicting with its binding. This could imply that Geralt wished for their destinies to be joined, or that Yennefer's life should be safe as long as his is. Based on what we know, we can assume the binding of fates is the key. From that moment, their lives become inextricably linked. Although the story does not frame it as a conventional romance at first, the consequences are plain. Their paths will intersect repeatedly. In the aftermath, amid the rubble of the ruined inn, Yennefer and Geralt emerge into the dawn. Their relationship begins, not with plain words, but with the strange and unspoken pact formed by that final wish. And so, as your body sinks into deeper calm, reflect on this. Sometimes the most dangerous monster is not the one with claws and fangs, but the one whose magic binds two fates together, whether they know it or not. Let that awareness fade gently now and drift into rest. Section 3. A question of price. Picture a grand hall alive with candlelight and the glitter of polished armor, where music and laughter disguise the quiet tension beneath. Years have passed since Geralt faced the cursed Striga in Vizima and crossed paths with the djinn that bound his fate to Yennefer. Now his road brings him to Cintra, a coastal kingdom ruled by Queen Calanthe, the lioness famed for her valor and for a temper that few dare to test. Geralt comes at her request. Officially, he is a guest at a feast celebrating Princess Pavetta's 15th birthday and betrothal. Unofficially, Calanthe has summoned him to guard against whatever trouble might shadow the occasion. The Witcher suspects she has sensed destiny at work, but refuses to name it aloud. The banquet is radiant. Nobles from neighboring realms drink, jest, and barter for power. But the mood shifts when a knight in full, horned armor strides into the hall. His voice, hollow behind the helm, declares he is Urchion of Erlenwold, and he has come to claim Princess Pavetta's hand by right of the Law of Surprise. This law is ancient and perilous. When a life is saved, the rescuer may demand that which you already have but do not yet know. It is meant as an act of trust in fate itself. Urchin explains that years earlier he saved King Rogner, Calanthe's late husband. For his reward, Rogner swore the law of surprise, only to learn, on returning home, that Calanthe was already with child. That child was Pavetta, promised unknowingly to the man who saved her father's life. The court erupts in disbelief. Calanthe, unwilling to yield her daughter to a stranger, let alone one cursed to bear a beast's face by daylight, orders her guards to remove him. But Geralt, watching quietly, senses that something larger than royal pride is unfolding. He reminds the queen that destiny once named cannot be denied without consequence. Urchin insists he seeks love, not dominion. Pavetta rises to defend him. Their eyes meet, and power fills the hall. Plates rattle, a gale of magic bursts from her like a storm. Guests are flung aside, walls tremble. It is the first open display of the elder blood, the dormant power flowing in Pavetta's line. Calanthe, shocked yet resolute, demands the chaos stop. But Pavetta's gift cannot be contained until Geralt, the druid Mousesack, and the queen herself join forces to calm her. When the storm subsides, silence reigns. Seeing the strength of their bond, and perhaps recognizing that destiny itself has spoken, Calanthe yields. She gives her blessing. As the clock strikes midnight, the curse on Urchin shatters. His monstrous guise falls away, revealing a young man named Duny. Grateful beyond measure, Duny offers Geralt any reward he desires. The Witcher, half amused and half weary of gold and titles, refuses payment and instead invokes the same ancient law that brought Duny here, the law of surprise. He claims that which you already have but do not yet know. Laughter rolls through the hall until Pavetta sways and turns pale. The truth dawns in that heartbeat. She is already pregnant. The child she carries will be the child of surprise, ode to Geralt of Rivia. Her name will be Cirilla, though the world will know her as Ciri, the lion cub of Cintra. From this moment forward, destiny binds Witcher and child together. Geralt believes he has merely played along with superstition, but the currents of the world move differently for him. Based on what we know of prophecy and the elder blood, it could imply that the law of surprise is not chance, but an ancient mechanism through which the world balances its scales. What mortals call coincidence may, in truth, be the work of forces older than any kingdom. Beyond the feast hall, dawn spills over the sea cliffs of Cintra. The revelry fades to quiet as the first gulls cry over the foam. No one yet realizes that the decisions made this night, Calanthe's surrender, Duny's gratitude, Geralt's half-joking claim, have set in motion a chain of events that will reach across empires and decades. Destiny, once invoked, never releases its hold. Section 4. The Sword of Destiny. Time passes as it always does for a Witcher, quietly, without ceremony. Seasons turn, monsters rise and fall, and Geralt walks the path. Contracts blur into one another, faces fade, and the world rolls on without him. He tells himself he needs nothing more than work, coin, and solitude. But somewhere beyond the horizon, destiny waits, patient as the tide. It finds him on a mist-drenched morning at the edge of Broccolon Forest, the last great wild on the continent. This is a place older than men or kings, a green labyrinth watched over by the Dryads, fierce daughters of the forest who obey only their queen, Ithna. Few outsiders leave Brokilon alive. The Dryads kill intruders without hesitation. Yet Geralt rides there as a messenger, carrying words of peace from King Venslav of Brugge. He expects diplomacy. What he finds is something far more fateful. Among the roots of an ancient oak, he discovers a small mud-streaked child hiding beneath the leaves. Her dress, though torn and dirty, once belonged to a princess. She meets his gaze with bright green eyes that seem to see more than a child should. She calls herself Ciri. At first, Geralt believes he has found a runaway noble. The forest often swallows travelers. He plans only to return her safely. But the longer they travel together, the more he senses something unusual. Ciri moves through danger with uncanny luck, a pattern the Witcher has learned to notice. She chatters as they walk, speaking of her grandmother, the Lioness of Cintra, of how she escaped an arranged marriage to a prince of Verdun, of her longing for freedom. Geralt listens in silence, unaware that destiny is walking beside him once again. Eventually, the Dryads capture them and bring them before Ithna in the heart of the forest. The queen studies Geralt first, then the girl, and her expression changes, not with anger, but recognition. There is power coiled within the child, something ancient and familiar. The Dryads intend to keep Ciri, to make her one of their own, as they have done with other lost girls. To join them, she must drink from the waters of Brokilon, a potion that binds the soul to the forest, washing away memory and mortal ties. Ciri lifts the cup, drinks, and nothing happens. No trance, no change, no loss of self. The Dryads murmur. Ithna sees what the forest itself understands. This child cannot be claimed. Her blood carries the spark of the elder races, an inheritance older and deeper than Brokilon's own magic. The forest yields to her destiny instead of rewriting it. Ithna releases them both. Before they depart, she tells Geralt that he and the child are linked, that their fates run in parallel lines, which will meet again no matter how far they stray. Geralt dismisses the words as myth and coincidence, though he cannot ignore how right it feels when Ciri slips her hand into his. They leave the forest together, crossing rivers and meadows, until they reach the Druids, who will return Ciri to her family. At the boundary of the woods, she looks up at him, eyes luminous in the fading light, and whispers that she will see him again. Geralt smiles faintly and tells her that destiny doesn't concern him, that their paths are separate. He believes his own words. Yet as he rides away, the wind through the trees seems to echo with quiet laughter, as if the forest itself knows better. Based on what we know of the law of surprise and the prophecies that surround the Elder Blood, it could imply that the bond between Geralt and Ciri is more than chance, that the world itself is steering them toward one another to fulfill some design beyond mortal sight. Behind him, Brokilon fades into mist. Ahead, the continent trembles on the brink of war. Nilfgaard gathers strength in the south, and the kingdoms of men drift toward conflict. The Witcher rides on, unaware that this meeting in the forest, simple, accidental, inevitable, will echo through every battle yet to come. Destiny, once awakened, never sleeps. Section 5. The Fall of Cintra. Night descends over the continent, and with it comes the fire of conquest. From the south, the armies of Nilfgaard march beneath their black sun banners, an empire of precision and ambition. led by Emir Va Emrys, the white flame dancing on the graves of his foes. Kingdom after kingdom falters, and now the storm turns toward the coastal stronghold of Cintra. Cintra is proud, fierce, and unyielding. Its queen, Calanthe, the lioness, is no stranger to war. Once she crushed invaders on these very plains, but now the enemy is greater by far. Nilfgaard does not merely conquer, it consumes. Within the palace walls, Calanthe refuses to retreat. Her granddaughter, Princess Cirilla, stands beside her, restless, spirited, already touched by the whispers of prophecy. For months, Calanthe has tried to arrange an alliance through marriage, but the girl's fate will not be so easily bartered. Outside the city, the Empire gathers like a dark tide. When the attack comes, it is merciless. Siege towers claw at the walls, and the crash of catapults shakes the cliffs. Cintra's soldiers fight bravely, but the black-armored legions are endless. Fire rains upon the rooftops. Calanthe rides to the battlements in full armor, her banner blazing gold in the smoke. She rallies her troops until her sword is slick with blood. Yet even the lioness cannot turn back an empire. When the inner gates fall, she understands that the battle and her kingdom are lost. She sends for Mousak, the court druid, and gives him her last command: find the Witcher. Geralt of Rivia, who once saved her court and claimed the law of surprise, is to take Ciri to safety. But fate moves faster than orders can be carried. Nilfgaardian soldiers overrun the castle. Mousak and several retainers try to spirit the princess away, yet the corridors are already crawling with invaders. In the confusion, Ciri slips their grasp. Some later accounts claim Mousak was slain during the defense. Others say he was captured and replaced by a Doppler in Nilfgaard's service. What we can assume from all versions is that Ciri escapes the city alone, driven by instinct and terror. Behind her, Cintra burns. On the highest tower, Calanthe makes her final choice. Rather than yield, she leaps from the ramparts into the sea of flames below. The lioness dies on her own terms, her courage undiminished. For days, Ciri flees through the wilderness, across frozen fields, through ruined villages, surviving on roots and rainwater. She hides from scouts and raiders, from men who would sell her to Nilfgaard for gold. Each night she dreams of a white-haired figure with eyes like molten amber, a presence both terrifying and safe. Based on what we know of her elder blood heritage, it could imply that her latent power, tied to prophecy and the flow of destiny, is guiding her toward the man who bears her fate. Far away, Geralt hears whispers of Cintra's fall. He rides north, guilt heavy in his chest. He had once come to claim the child owed him and turned away, believing himself unfit to raise her. Now the kingdom is ashes, and he fears the girl is lost. Still he searches. Villages lie abandoned, corpses hang from trees, but he does not stop. His search ends near the Yaruga River, in a war-scarred hamlet reduced to mud and ruin. There, among starving refugees, he finds a small child wrapped in a tattered cloak. She looks up, her eyes green and unflinching. Without hesitation, she runs to him and clings to his waist, whispering that she has been waiting for him. For a heartbeat, the world is utterly still. Geralt understands what the gods, the mages, and destiny itself have been telling him since that banquet years ago. This is the child of surprise. his child not by blood, but by something older and stronger than any law. He kneels, resting a scarred hand on her hair. Snow begins to fall, softening the ruins around them. In that moment, Witcher and girl stand at the crossroads of everything that will come: war, prophecy, and the long road that will shape them both. It may be that destiny is not a chain, but a thread, a line that bends and folds until the souls it binds finally meet. Whatever force drew Ciri through fire and ruin to this man was not coincidence. It was inevitability. Together they step into the snow-covered forest. Behind them, Cintra is only smoke on the horizon. Ahead lies exile, training, and a bond that will redefine the meaning of family. For now, though, they walk quietly. The hunt is over. Destiny has found its mark. Section 6. Kaer Morhen. High in the blue mountains of Cadwin, winter reigns eternal. Snow blankets the peaks, muting the world to a quiet hum of wind and stone. Hidden among those frozen cliffs stands the ancient fortress of Kaer Morhen, stronghold of the Wolf School. Once a citadel of learning, now little more than a relic, haunted by a handful of survivors. It is here that Geralt of Rivia brings Ciri, the lost princess of Cintra, and his child of surprise. The fortress, long forgotten by kings and priests, offers the only refuge left untouched by the wars below. When they arrive, the gates groan open to reveal Vesemir, oldest of the witches and father to them all. He greets Geralt with quiet relief and studies the girl beside him. Small, wary, eyes the color of spring leaves. In her face, he sees both fragility and defiance. He knows at once she is not a pupil to be broken, but a life to be protected. Ciri's first winter in Kaer Morhen is harsh. The witches, Eskel, Lambert, and Cohen, train her as they once trained themselves. Wooden swords give way to steel, snow to sweat, fear to laughter. She learns to parry, to roll, to fall without pain. Though her body is that of a child, her resolve is iron. Even the sharp-tongued Lambert admits she's faster than he was at her age, though he insists on teasing her anyway. At first, the lessons are physical. Yet soon the witches realize something else is shaping her reflexes. She anticipates moves before they come, as though instinct itself whispers the next strike. Vesemir watches closely. Geralt says nothing, but he feels the same unease, a sense that this child's blood carries more than human quickness. The nights bring restless dreams. Ciri cries out in languages she does not know. Sometimes the air around her flickers with invisible power. One evening, a gust slams the shutters open, though no wind blows outside. That is when Vesemir insists they send for a sorceress. A few weeks later, Triss Merigold rides through the mountain passes, bringing warmth and the scent of spice into the grey halls. She examines Ciri and quickly forbids the witches from treating her as one of their own. No potions, no mutagens. Such things would destroy her. Triss reminds them that the trials are for the dying age of witches, not for the living thread of prophecy standing before them. Under Triss's care, Ciri begins new lessons: meditation, focus, the control of breathing and thought. She learns that emotion fuels chaos, that fear feeds magic, and that strength without understanding becomes destruction. When frustration breaks her composure, Triss soothes her with patience. The witches for all their skill can only watch and learn. As the weeks pass, the fortress feels less like a ruin and more like a home. Lambert's sarcasm turns to rough affection, Eskel teaches her to mend her own gear, and Vesemir tells stories of witches long gone. Around the fire, laughter mingles with the howling wind outside. For a time, Kaer Morhen knows peace. Still, the power within Ciri stirs. On some nights, her eyes glaze with distant focus. Words in elder speech spill from her lips in tones no child could know. Triss recognizes fragments of ancient prophecy, echoes of Lara Dorren, the elven ancestor whose blood flows through Ciri's veins. Based on what we know of that lineage, it could imply that Ciri's magic is not learned but inherited, an echo of creation itself, the ability to move through the hidden paths of the world that others call time or spheres. By the thaw of early spring, Ciri has changed. The thin, frightened girl who arrived with frost in her hair now moves like a wolf cub, sure-footed, fierce, alive. She laughs when she spars, even when she falls. Geralt, watching from the courtyard, feels something long forgotten, stirring inside him. Pride, perhaps, or the first fragile peace he has known in years. When Triss departs for the Council of Mages, she warns Geralt that this calm cannot last. The girl's power will draw eyes from every corner of the continent. Kings who would use her bloodline, sorcerers who would study it, and darker beings that crave it for their own ends. Guard her, she says, not from monsters, but from destiny. That night, Geralt stands on the battlements beneath a pale moon. Below him, Ciri runs through the courtyard chasing falling snowflakes, her laughter echoing between the towers. He feels the old instinct of the hunter, a chill not from the cold, but from knowing something unseen is already watching. Far to the south, whispers rise from Nilfgaard. Prophets speak of a child born of elder blood, who will change the fate of worlds. Whether salvation or ruin follows her, none can tell. Based on what we know of prophecy's nature in this world, it could suggest that such visions are not commands but possibilities, threads of future waiting to be chosen. For now, the fortress sleeps. The Witcher and his ward rest by the hearth, the glow of the fire softening the scars of years spent in shadow. Beyond the mountains, war stirs once more. But within these walls, there is something stronger than steel, the first quiet shape of a family. Destiny, for this brief moment, allows them peace before it calls again. Section 7. The Training of the Source. When the mountain snows begin to soften and the streams once more find their voices, Kaer Morhen stirs from its winter silence. In the courtyard, beneath a pale dawn, Ciri runs the final drills of her Witcher training. Her sword hums against Eskel's steel. Her boots strike clean patterns in the frost, and even Vesemir nods in quiet approval. For one so young, she has learned discipline that few adults ever master. But as the weeks pass, something changes. Her senses sharpen beyond natural limits. Her energy flickers with unpredictable force. At times, the witches see her eyes glaze with concentration, as if she were hearing music no one else can hear. They have seen magic before, yet this feels different, older, untamed. Geralt remembers Triss Merigold's warning. Her danger is not in weakness, but in power, left without guidance. So he writes to Yennefer of Vengerberg, trusting that only she can help the girl understand what she is becoming. When Yennefer arrives, the world seems to rearrange itself around her. She is elegance and command incarnate, cloaked in black and white, the scent of lilac and gooseberries trailing in her wake. The witches greet her with cautious deference. For Geralt, her presence is both comfort and ache. Their history hangs unspoken between them, like the pause before a storm. Ciri's first impression of Yennefer is awe mixed with challenge. The sorceress wastes no time with pleasantries. "You will learn control," she tells the girl, "because power without it destroys everything, including you." From that moment, Kaer Morhen echoes, not with clashing swords, but with the soft hum of magic. Yennefer's lessons are merciless and exact. She teaches Ciri to find the rhythm beneath her heartbeat, to draw breath until the world stills, to reach for chaos and shape it instead of letting it shape her. Candle flames dance when she concentrates. Frost forms where her focus breaks. Yennefer corrects her with the precision of a sculptor and the care of someone who sees her own reflection in the marble she is shaping. In time, frustration turns to progress. The child who once shattered windows in her sleep now bends a single thread of flame between her fingers. When anger surges, Yennefer is there to anchor her. Their bond deepens, not easily, not gently, but truthfully. Ciri begins to call her mother Yenna. In moments of affection, she pretends are accidental. Yennefer never answers the name, but her smile softens each time she hears it. Geralt watches from the sidelines, uneasy yet proud. The girl he found in the ashes of Cintra is changing before his eyes, still his cub, yet already something beyond his reach. He and Yennefer speak seldom of their feelings, but their shared duty forms a quiet peace between them. During one lesson, Ciri collapses without warning. Her body seizes. Her voice shifts into an ancient cadence none of them understand. The words belong to the elder speech, but not the modern dialect known to scholars. This is older, heavier, almost sung. Yennefer recognizes fragments tied to the prophecies of Ithlinne, which foretell fire, frost, and a child who will bear the blood of Lara Dorren. When the fit passes, Ciri remembers nothing. That night, Yennefer tells Geralt what she suspects. The girl is a source, a conduit through which raw magic flows, but not an ordinary one. Her power is fused with lineage, her will tangled with prophecy. She carries the echo of Lara, Yennefer says quietly, and perhaps the promise of what comes after. Based on what we know from the recorded histories of the Elder Bloodline, it could imply that Ciri is more than a descendant. She is the continuation of an ancient design, a bridge between worlds that once diverged. Her instincts, her visions, even her survival through chaos may not be accidents at all, but echoes of a purpose that began long before her birth. The months pass. Under Yennefer's guidance, Ciri learns not only spells, but the patience to live with herself. She studies languages, history, the manners of court and council. The witches tease that she now speaks with too much dignity for a child of Kaer Morhen. Still, she joins them at dusk to spar, her laughter ringing across the courtyard like a bell of pure defiance. When spring returns, Yennefer decides that Ciri's next stage of education must take place away from the fortress. The girl needs a teacher's circle, books, and the quiet wisdom of the Temple of Melitele in Elander. Under the guidance of the priestess Mother Yennefer. Geralt argues not because he disagrees, but because he dreads the silence that will follow their departure. Yennefer's answer is simple. If you love her, you will let her grow. The morning they leave, Ciri bids farewell to each Witcher in her own way. Lambert with a grin, Eskel with a hug, Vesemir with tears she tries to hide. To Geralt she says nothing at first, only presses her forehead to his chest. He promises to find her again when the path allows. As the two riders disappear into the misted valley, Kaer Morhen returns to its long quiet. Geralt stands on the rampart until the last echo of hooves fades into the wind. He feels the same stillness he once knew before a hunt. Not absence, but anticipation. Because destiny, once set in motion, does not rest. Based on what we know of how fate intertwines those touched by the elder blood, it seems that every separation between Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri serves not to divide them, but to draw them back together in stronger alignment. The pattern is already forming, invisible but undeniable. Far below, the rivers of Cadwyn run bright with thaw. Far beyond, kingdoms prepare for war, and somewhere in that widening world, a young girl rides south toward her next chapter, unaware that every step brings her closer to the storms that prophecy has promised. For now, she rides with her teacher, laughter carried on the wind, and destiny, patient as ever, rides quietly beside them. Section 8. The Temple of Melitele and the Prophecy of Ithleen. The road to Elander is long and gentle, winding through green valleys and fields, just waking from winter. Yennefer rides ahead, her cloak fluttering like a dark banner, and Ciri follows close behind, her heart full of questions. Beyond the mountains lies the Temple of Melitele, a refuge of learning and healing older than any kingdom now standing. Within its gardens of lavender and stone, Mother Yennefer greets them both. She and Yennefer share the wary affection of women who have known each other too long to pretend at courtesy. One glance at Ciri, though, softens Yennefer's tone. Another child the world wants too much from, she murmurs, leading them inside. Life at the temple unfolds with quiet rhythm. Ciri rises with the bells, studies languages, philosophy, and the disciplines of mind. The priestesses teach her patience. Yennefer teaches her precision. Magic, the sorceress tells her, is not fire in the hand, it is thought and restraint. Under Yennefer's guidance, Ciri learns to center her power rather than chase it. For a time, peace holds. The world outside feels distant, war a rumor carried on spring wind. Yet destiny is never idle. Ciri's dreams return, sharper than before. She speaks in her sleep, uttering words of the elder speech none can fully translate. In waking hours, she sees flashes of snow, the sound of shattering glass, and towers swallowed by light. When Yennefer and Yennefer compare notes, both recognize echoes of something old, the voice of prophecy stirring within the child's blood. Yennefer opens the temple's archives, bringing forth a scroll so ancient its script bleeds with time. It bears the verses of Ithline Egli ap Ivanien, the elven seer whose words have haunted centuries. The world will die amidst ice and be reborn by the seed of the elder blood. The priestess reads aloud until the lamps tremble. Yennefer listens in silence, her expression unreadable. They do not tell Ciri everything. Instead, Yennefer instructs her to focus inward, to find the thread of her magic, not its meaning. Still, the girl senses the truth, pressing at the edges of every lesson. She knows she is bound to something vast and unyielding. Based on what we know of how prophecy clings to lineage, it could imply that Ciri's role is not chosen but inherited, a current she must learn to steer rather than escape. One evening during meditation, Ciri slips into trance. Her voice changes, deep and distant, speaking of frost and flame, of worlds merging and falling apart. When she awakens, Yennefer is beside her, calm but pale. The sorceress tells her only that such moments are glimpses, threads of what could be, not what must. "Remember," she says softly, "destiny is not a cage, it is a path, and you may still choose how you walk it." Days stretch into weeks. The child learns to quiet her dreams, to draw symbols in the sand that still her mind. Nenneke calls her progress a miracle. Yennefer calls it control. Yet both women feel the same unease, the calm before an inevitable storm. Beyond the temple's walls, rumors of Nilfgaard's growing power drift north. Armies gather. Mages whisper of political fractures in Aretuza. The continent leans once more toward chaos, and every sign seems to point back to the girl, studying quietly beneath the goddess's gaze. Sometimes, in the garden at dusk, Ciri looks to the horizon and wonders what she has become. The wind answers in a tongue older than memory. Based on what we know of the Elder Blood's connection to the spheres, it could suggest that her gift is not meant for destruction or prophecy alone, but for bridging worlds, to choose between the futures that others merely foresee. Yennefer watches her from the cloister archway, the fading light turning her eyes to violet glass. She thinks of Geralt on the path, somewhere far from this peace, and of how the three of them are bound by an invisible thread neither magic nor will can cut. Night falls over Elander. The bells of Melitele toll their slow, patient rhythm. The world holds its breath, waiting for the child who carries its future in her veins to awaken once more. Section 9. The Thanedd Conclave and the Shattering of the North. The peace that once cloaked the continent has grown thin as parchment. Whispers of Nilfgaard's conquests reach every corner tavern, and even the smallest border towns feel the tension that precedes war. Across the north, kings prepare for battles they cannot afford, while mages struggle to keep a fragile balance between politics and prophecy. For Yennefer of Vengerberg, that balance is a daily fight. At the Temple of Melitele, she has trained Ciri to channel her magic and silence the chaos of her elder blood. Yet the child's power grows restless. Her visions have returned. Fragmented images of burning citadels, a white frost consuming the horizon, and faces she does not know. Yennefer understands that such gifts cannot remain hidden. In Ciri's bloodline lies the attention of monarchs and mages alike. A letter arrives sealed with the sigil of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers. It summons all prominent mages to a grand conclave on the island of Thanedd, home to Aretuza, the famed academy for female adepts. The stated purpose: to restore unity among the northern realms and to renew their magical alliances. The true reason, Yennefer suspects, is far more complicated, but she knows she must attend and that she cannot leave Ciri behind. Their journey begins quietly. From Elander, they travel south through river valleys alive with summer, following trade routes toward the coast. Yennefer teaches Ciri as they ride, lectures on politics, the lineage of kings, and the secret hierarchies that govern magic. Power, she reminds her, is most dangerous when it believes itself pure. Ciri listens, though unease gnaws at her. The world beyond the temple feels less forgiving. Every inn and checkpoint filled with soldiers whose eyes linger too long. By the time they reach Gorsvelen, the port city at the base of Thanedd's cliffs, the air hums with tension. Emissaries from Redania, Temeria, and Kedwen jostle for lodging, and cloaked figures whisper in alleyways. War is no longer rumor. It is inevitability, waiting for the right spark. Above it all, the island of Thanedd rises from the sea, its towers half-shrouded in mist. Upon arrival, Yennefer entrusts Ciri to the care of Tissaia de Vries, the stern but fair headmistress of Aretuza. Ciri is awed by the place. The marble halls, the wards of glowing light, the sound of spells drifting through courtyards. Yet even amid such splendor, she feels something amiss. The atmosphere is thick, the conversations guarded. She hears names whispered with venom. Philippa Eilhart, Francesca Findabair, Vilgefortz, and learns that even the Brotherhood's ranks are divided. That night, unable to sleep, Ciri sneaks through the Academy's corridors and overhears fragments of argument from behind closed doors, talk of treason, of Nilfgaardian agents, of kings who no longer trust their own sorcerers. Her teacher's voice, Yennefer's, rises once, sharp and furious, before the door slams shut. Ciri returns to her bed, uneasy. At dawn, the conclave begins. The great mages of the continent gather in Aretuza's Hall of Echoes, robes shimmering, eyes wary. For a few hours, civility holds. Yennefer and Tissaia sit together, outwardly composed, though both sense the coming fracture. And then, without warning, the illusion collapses. In a single moment, the conclave descends into chaos. The hall's wards are shattered from within, as Philippa Eilhart and her Redanian allies expose Vilgefortz and several others as Nilfgaardian collaborators. Spells ignite, walls crack. The air fills with fire and smoke. Soldiers smuggled onto the island under pretense storm the halls, blades drawn, screams echo down corridors once reserved for study and debate. Yennefer fights her way through the chaos, her magic cutting a path through stone and steel alike. She searches for Ciri, who has fled into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath Aretuza. There, the girl collides with the Nilfgaardian knight in black armor, Cahir Diffrin ep Tialach, the same man who has haunted her dreams since Cintra's fall. His presence shatters her composure. Terrified, she lashes out instinctively, her power detonating in a burst of raw energy that cracks the walls and warps the very air around her. At that moment, Geralt of Rivia, drawn by the storm of rumors and fate alike, arrives on Thanedd. He finds not a council, but a battlefield. Mages and soldiers alike lie dead across the marbled terraces. He cuts his way toward the heart of the island, searching for Yennefer and the girl who binds their destinies. When he finally finds Yennefer, she is barely standing, her magic nearly spent. Together they push deeper into the ruins, calling Ciri's name. But destiny is faster than either of them. Cornered and terrified, Ciri's elder blood awakens once more. The boundaries between worlds thin, shimmer, and then collapse. In an instant of unbearable brilliance, she vanishes, torn through the veil of reality, leaving nothing but silence and the smell of ozone behind. When the light fades, the Conclave is no more. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers lies broken, its unity shattered beyond repair. The northern mages scatter into factions: Philippa's Lodge, Tissaya's survivors, and those who will later serve Nilfgaard. The kings of the north, now distrustful of magic, will soon turn on each other. The world that had stood in uneasy balance tilts into open war. Geralt, gravely wounded in the fighting, is found among the wreckage by Triss Merigold, who tends his wounds and carries him to safety. Yennefer vanishes soon after, leaving behind only her pendant and silence. Rumor will say she fell, but Geralt refuses to believe it. Somewhere beyond their reach, he knows Ciri is alive. Ciri casts through the spheres, awakens in a desert beneath twin suns, a world both alien and familiar, a place the elves once called Korath. She stumbles through its sands, alone and disoriented, unaware that this exile marks the next chapter of her transformation. Based on what we know of the Elder Blood's link to the conjunction of the spheres, it could imply that Ciri's uncontrolled passage was not mere chance. Her blood, a living conduit of chaos, may have instinctively sought refuge in another world when her life was in danger, proof that destiny itself bends to her survival. At sunrise, the ruins of Thanedd are silent, save for the distant crash of waves. The smoke rises like funeral banners, carrying away the last illusions of peace. The mages who survive will never trust one another again. The north will fracture, and Nilfgaard will march. The child of destiny is gone. The Witcher is broken, and the sorceress stands alone at the edge of a world reshaping itself in fire. The Conclave was meant to preserve order. Instead, it unmade it, leaving behind only prophecy and a silence filled with the echo of Ciri's name. Section 10, The Tower of the Swallow and the Return of the Child of Destiny. The sun over the Korath Desert is merciless. The dunes shimmer like molten gold, and every step sinks deep into burning sand. Cirilla, once Princess of Cintra, once student of witches and sorceresses, wanders through the endless wasteland, alone. Her lips are cracked, her body weakened. Yet something unseen drives her onward. She does not know how long she walks. The horizon never changes. The stars above are foreign, and the wind carries whispers. In a language older than any she has learned, she has crossed into another sphere, one the elves of legend call Korath, a barren world forgotten since the conjunction of the spheres. When she finally collapses, consciousness fading, she is found not by men, but by elves. They are tall and otherworldly, skin pale as moonlight, eyes gleaming like mirrors of the sea. They speak the elder speech with the ease of breath and call themselves the Enel, the elves who never left their ancestral world. Their leader, resplendent in armor of black glass, introduces himself as Eredin Briac Glass, commander of the Dirg Ruedri, the Red Riders. Eredin greets her with reverence, calling her Ziriel, the Swallow. He tells her she is among kin, that her coming was foretold, but beneath the words of welcome lingers control. He keeps her close, watching with cold fascination as she recovers her strength. Among the Enel is another figure, Avalak, an ancient sage of their people. Unlike Eredin, His voice carries sorrow rather than command. He tells Ciri the truth of her bloodline. She is the last descendant of Lara Dorren, the elven sorceress who once defied her kind by loving a human. That union cursed and blessed her line, weaving chaos and destiny into its every generation. Ciri listens, uncertain. The elves' world is beautiful, but hollow. The air tastes different, the sky too bright. She senses that her presence here is not sanctuary, but purpose. Avallac'h speaks to her of the gate of worlds, of power that allows travel between spheres. He says her elder blood holds the key to reopening them. At first, she does not understand, but as days pass, she sees the truth in the way the elves look at her, with reverence that borders on desperation. Their world is dying. The once vast dominion of the NL has begun to shrink, their magic waning, their skies dimming. Based on what we know of their history and the cyclical decay of worlds in Sapkowski's lore, it could imply that they view Ciri not as a guest, but as a lifeline, the means to restore what their pride has cost them. Ciri's confinement grows subtle but complete. The palace of Tirnalia is gilded with beauty, but its walls are a prison. She is forbidden to leave the city, shadowed by silent guards wherever she walks. Eredin visits often, his charm masking his intent. He tells her she is destined to help the NL reclaim passage to the human world. He calls it salvation. She hears conquest. Only Avallac'h dares to defy that vision. He warns her quietly that once her power is unleashed in full, it will never be hers alone again. They will use you, he says, as others already have. In secret, he helps her escape. Together they flee across the silver forests of the NL, pursued by Eredin's Red Riders, spectral figures whose hoofbeats echo through the mists of worlds. Their destination is Tor Zirael, the Tower of the Swallow, a structure that stands upon the edge of the sea, its summit crowned by a gate of impossible light. Legend says it is a scar left by the conjunction itself, a place where the boundaries between worlds grow thin. To the Ain-El, it is holy. To Ciri, it feels like home, calling her back. When Eredin's host closes in, Ciri climbs the tower's spiraling stairs. The storm above churns with green fire, lightning bending toward her as though drawn by her pulse. Eredin calls after her, promising mercy, power, belonging. She answers with silence. At the summit, she touches the light, and the world splits open. Time loses meaning, reality unravels. She falls through endless fragments of existence, worlds of ice, of molten plains, of cities where the sky glows red, and men ride machines of iron. Each realm flashes before her eyes, fleeting and strange. Based on what we know of the Elder Blood's connection to the spheres, it could suggest that her power follows the same pathways that once intertwined all realities during the original conjunction, an echo of creation repeating itself through her. At last she lands hard upon frozen ground. The air is cold, filled with the smell of pine and smoke. She is back in the continent, but not the one she left. Months have passed. The northern kingdoms are in ruins, their armies broken by Nilfgaard's relentless advance. She hides her identity, taking the road under a hood and a false name. In the war-torn countryside, she finds refuge among a band of young fugitives who call themselves the Rats, rebels and thieves who prey upon soldiers and nobles alike. With them, she finds a strange kind of belonging, though it is steeped in violence. They rename her Falca, after the mad princess who once sought vengeance upon kings. The name feels dangerous, but it fits the anger now burning in her. For a time, she forgets destiny. She rides fast, laughs louder, and lets her sword answer the world. But the elder blood does not sleep. The power within her flickers in moments of fear and fury, and she dreams again of the tower, of worlds waiting beyond sight. Her time among the rats ends brutally. Betrayed by those she trusted, hunted by bounty hunters loyal to Nilfgaard, she is wounded and left for dead. In that moment of despair, instinct takes over. The power within her surges. The veil tears once more, and she disappears, her scream swallowed by the spaces between worlds. She awakens in the cold mists of the Skellige seas, washed ashore among ancient stones. Above her, gulls cry, and the wind smells of salt and freedom. For the first time in months, she feels no chains, only purpose. Somewhere across that same sea, Geralt of Rivia searches for her. Recovered from his wounds at Thanedd, he has gathered companions: Dandelion, Milva, Cahir, Regis, Angoulême, and Zoltan Chive, each drawn by loyalty or fate. They call themselves the Hansa, and their purpose is clear: to find the child of destiny and bring her home. At the same time, Yennefer, freed from imprisonment and carrying her own scars, follows her visions. In dreams, she sees a swallow flying through the storm, always ahead, always out of reach. The world itself seems to lean toward reunion. Armies move, kingdoms collapse, and across the continent, tales spread of a girl with ashen hair, a sword in hand, and eyes that flash with worlds unseen. The cycle is nearly complete. Destiny, long deferred, draws its final breath before revelation. As snow begins to fall upon the continent once more, Ciri rides beneath the pale sky, no longer the lost child of Cintra, but something far greater. She is not merely the bearer of prophecy. She is its fulfillment, its defiance, its living question. And somewhere beyond the mountains, two souls, one witcher, one sorceress, move ever closer to her, bound by the same unbreakable thread of fate. The Tower of the Swallow stands silent behind her, its gates sealed, its light fading. But its echo remains, in the wind, in the pulse of magic that hums through her veins, and in the path that now leads her home. Destiny has done its work. Now choice must finish it. Section 11. The Lady of the Lake and the Final Choice of Destiny. Morning rises over the sea in hues of pale gold. The waves move softly against the cliffs of Skellige, carrying the breath of distant storms. A lone rider follows the shoreline, ashen-haired, cloaked in salt and frost. Cirilla, child of the elder blood, the swallow who has crossed worlds, has come at last to the end of her long flight. Months have passed since she left the Tower of the Swallow behind. War still rages across the continent. Kingdoms lie smoldering, their banners forgotten in the mud. The north resists, the south advances, and in between, stories of a girl who moved like the wind, spread from one survivor's whisper to the next. Some call her savior, others omen. Ciri knows better. She is neither. She is simply what the world made her. But destiny, ever patient, has drawn the last threads together. The return of the White Wolf. Far from Skellige's shores, Geralt of Rivia rides once more, not as a lone hunter, but as leader of the Hansa, a small fellowship bound by loyalty and the faint hope of redemption. Beside him travel Dandelion, Milva, Regis, Cahir, Zoltan, and Angoulême, companions found through trial and misfortune, each owing their lives to the same quiet determination that drives him. Geralt's every step now follows Rumor, a girl with hair like moonlight, seen crossing battlefields and ruins. Each tale feels like smoke in his hands, vanishing when grasped. Yet he keeps going, guided by something stronger than reason, an instinct honed not by training, but by love. Their path winds through war-torn lands, through the embers of Cintra's legacy, until at last, on the misty edges of Toussaint, a trace of truth appears. Word comes of a young woman moving with uncanny grace, wielding a blade named Swallow. Geralt says nothing, but his pace quickens. Fate has begun to gather. The Emperor's Bargain. Far to the south, in the marble halls of Nilfgaard, the Emperor Emir var Emreis sits upon his black throne. His armies have brought half the world to heel, but victory has not brought him peace. He dreams each night of a daughter lost to time and prophecy, the child once promised to Geralt by the law of surprise, whom the world now names Ziriel. When word reaches him that Ciri lives, he sends envoys across the continent, promising gold, pardon, and power to whoever brings her to him alive. Yet even he does not grasp the full weight of what she has become. His pursuit is no longer paternal. It is political, divine, inevitable. Ciri, hearing of the Emperor's demand, feels the old pull of blood and fate. There is a part of her that longs to know the truth of her lineage, the part that still remembers her grandmother's throne and her mother's smile. So she rides south. The journey is quiet, her heart heavier than any sword she has carried. When she reaches Nilfgaard's capital, she is brought before the Emperor himself. The room is vast, echoing, its banners black and gold. Emir stands tall, every inch the conqueror the world has come to fear. But when he sees her, the mask cracks for a heartbeat. He calls her daughter. Their meeting is brief, heavy with unspoken truths. Ciri listens, but does not kneel. Emir offers her safety, inheritance, a crown that could unite the continent. She refuses. "I was not born for thrones," she says quietly, "and no one born of prophecy should ever rule men." That night, she rides north once more, her path uncertain, but her will her own. Based on what we know of Ciri's character in every account, it could imply that this moment marks the final severing of bloodline and destiny, that she chooses humanity, not by blood, but by action, freeing herself from the cycle of control that began the day she was born. The end of war. As the snows melt and spring returns, the war begins to burn itself out. Nilfgaard's empire, stretched thin, falters at last before the united northern forces, led by Redania and Temeria. The cost is immeasurable. Tens of thousands dead, entire lands razed, but the fire finally dims. Amid this fragile truce, the last stories of Geralt and Ciri converge. Near the ruins of Rivia, the Witcher and his companions arrive at a market square, turned to chaos. The townsfolk, fevered by fear and rumor, have turned upon the few surviving witches, accusing them of sorcery, of curses, of bringing the war upon them. Geralt, ever the protector, steps between the mob and the helpless. In the confusion, a pitchfork strikes him deep. The white wolf falls. The world holds its breath. As blood darkens the cobblestones, a shape moves through the crowd. Yennefer is there, drawn by a force she cannot name. She catches him as he collapses, her magic spent, her tears falling freely for the first time in years. Around them, the mob disperses, frightened by their own violence. In that moment, Ciri feels it. Far away, the air trembles. She rides hard, faster than any horse should bear, following the pull in her chest. When she arrives, Yennefer is holding Geralt in her arms. Neither speaks. The witch's pulse fades, like the final note of a song. Ciri kneels beside them, her hand trembling as she touches Geralt's cheek. A soft wind stirs. The world around them grows still. She closes her eyes and reaches. Light spills outward, gentle as dawn. Time slows, and something beyond magic fills the space. It is not resurrection, not truly. It is a rewriting of endings, a mercy given by one who stands between worlds. When the light fades, Rivia is silent again. Some say that was the moment the White Wolf's spirit left the continent, carried by the Child of Destiny to a world without war or prophecy. Others say both he and Yennefer live still, resting in a far-off place where swords never rust and winter never comes. Based on what we know of how Sapkowski leaves this final crossing purposefully unresolved, it could suggest that the ending is not meant to answer, but to offer an act of peace after lifetimes of struggle. Ciri, through the power of her elder blood, becomes not the weapon of prophecy, but its author, the Lady of the Lake. Afterward, tales diverge. Some speak of a sorceress seen wandering lake shores, her eyes violet as dusk, waiting for a white-haired witcher who never returned. Others tell of a maiden in silver armor emerging from the mists of Avalon, carrying a sword named Swallow to a distant night. Ciri herself vanishes into legend. She is last seen in a place where sunlight filters through endless mist, where the waters reflect a sky of eternal twilight. There she meets another traveler, a young knight in shining armor, lost between realms. He asks her name. She smiles faintly and replies, "Call me the Lady of the Lake." From that moment on, her story becomes myth, retold in songs that cross ages and worlds. And so the tale of Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri closes, not with victory or death, but with transformation. The hunter, Usash, the mage, and the Child of Destiny. 3 souls, bound by love, stronger than any curse, carried beyond the boundaries of their own world. The continent rebuilds. The fires of war fade into history. Kings rise, kingdoms fall, and the world moves on, as it always does. But sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind shifts through the trees, travelers swear they see a white horse galloping along a lake shore. Upon it rides a woman with hair like frost and eyes like emerald fire. In her wake, the air hums faintly, as though the worlds themselves remember her passing. She does not speak. She simply rides, watching the stars, forever between endings and beginnings. The Witcher's path, it seems, never truly ends. It only changes form. And now, dear listener, our long journey through the continent comes to its quiet end. The wind settles over the fields of Toussaint. The forests of Brocquillon whisper again, and the world that once burned with prophecy finally exhales. We have followed the White Wolf from the darkness of Wisdom's crypts to the sunlit towers of destiny. We have walked beside Yennefer through love and loss, and we have watched Ciri, once a frightened child, become the legend the world would remember as the Lady of the Lake. The path has carried us through battlefields and between worlds, through silence, sacrifice, and the soft pulse of fate that never truly sleeps. And though their story fades now into the stillness of myth, somewhere beyond time, I like to imagine Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri together once more. Not as witcher, sorceress, or chosen child, but simply as a family. If you've made it this far, close your eyes for a moment. Take a slow breath. Let the sound of this world fade, and listen for the hush of wind on steel, the rustle of leaves, the gentle lapping of water on stone. That's the continent sleeping. That's the peace that Geralt fought for. And if this tale has brought you even a touch of calm, if it's helped you drift into sleep or wander in imagination, then perhaps, in some small way, the path has done its work again. Before you go, remember to subscribe to Pixel Pillow for more stories like this one. Deep dives into gaming worlds, told softly, where lore becomes lullaby. Leave a gentle like if this journey helped you rest, or share it with a friend who needs a quiet escape. We'll return soon to another realm, another legend whispered under the stars. But for tonight, let the continent sleep, and let your own story rest with it. Until next time, traveler, sleep well, dream deep, and may your path always lead you home.